Welcome everybody. Today we have a amazing guest. Awesome, like down to earth, super chill dude named Christopher Burns. It was fantastic working with him, just having a great conversation. We went into meditation, mindset, overcoming obstacles. He kind of turned it on me and started asking me questions too. It was quite interesting. I appreciated it actually. And yeah, we didn't even get into half the stuff we wanted to talk about, but it was just too much fun. So here we go. Enjoy the show. And yeah, let's do this.
Welcome to the Josh Bolton Show, where we dive into interesting and inspiring conversations. And now, your host, Josh Bolton.
Got it.
There he is.
What up, what up?
Not much in yourself?
Just being blessed, man. Being blessed and being a blessing. How's we going?
It's going pretty good, actually.
Yeah? What's been good so far?
So I'm working at I work night shift, but I'm working at a pretty easygoing store this week, so not much to stress about.
Love it. Love it. So you can focus, you don't have to focus that mental energy and effort and intention on the work. You can focus it on your dreams, right? Building dreams, making moves, all the things.
Exactly.
Love it, man. Well, I'm super stoked to be here. Seriously, thanks for having me on. I know it's going to be a great show. You got some great other guests that I saw that you've brought on, as well as listening to Vinay. He was talking about like quantum reality. I love that stuff. You
right?
mentioned you're a geek, and I was like, I'm a geek as heck.
Right. There's very few people you can actually like geek out like that and not be like, you're crazy. I'm like, this is relatively speaking.
Right. I love it.
So good, I noticed you have your own mastermind and website and all that.
Yep.
So how long have you been doing that?
Yeah. So coaching, I've been doing coaching for I think around 7-ish years now. Okay. And started back in 2014 or so, and started as a way to just figure out like how to channel the mindset and just everything I'd been learning in personal development into other people to support them in achieving their goals. I had a coach early in my journey, my personal development journey, and he was like one of the most giving people that I knew. He ended up passing a couple of years after that. I know this is like gold for the interview, but he ended up passing after that, and really inspired me as far as like what you could do when you really stand for someone to achieve their potential, and got into specifically men's coaching within the last like year and a half or so. And it's just been as a way to grow myself as a man, be a great man and leader and father for my future children, to be a great husband for my wife. And I just know other men in the world are seeking that. And I've always loved communities and hosting groups and things like that. So that's why I do the men mastermind, our elite men mastermind.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was just like looking up. I'm like, wow, like other than your basic package was like $49 a month or something like that. And you get unlimited.
There's 2 different courses. One is like the level 1, and that's like $37. And then there's a level 2, and that's $200. And then our elite men mastermind, it's like a couple $100 a month to be a part of that. And that's more of like a higher tier membership for guys who are really committed to having that accountability and that brotherhood by their side, so that they can grow and reach their greatest potential. And we have a variety of people in there, people making a couple $100,000 a year, people who are still figuring out their purpose. So we got a little under a dozen people in there right now, and just nice. It's like it's intimate, it's intimate, it's tight, it's really, really powerful, man.
It is. Yeah, like I have a mentor. It's just general like online business stuff, and and that's one of those, like, he jokes, he's like, okay, you're in the system, just like pay for my whatever package, and then he's like, if you want to upgrade, go ahead. But as he's like talking, and it's one of those, I realized this dude knows way more than he's leading on, kind of thing. And we only get 1 hour of him a week. And I'm like, shit, how do I get to pick his brain more, kind of thing? That's the biggest one though. Like he actually stumbled into the whole mastermind class thing by accident. Cause like he was teaching a group of women, entrepreneurial women, how to, like, they were doing photography and graphic editing. That was like his specialty in the 80s, because they didn't have that. Right. And he's like, He's like, I get $30 a month, 1 hour call a week. Like, would you do it? And they're like, that's all done kind of thing. And that's where he's like, now I have calls where they're paying me like $1,000 for the whole month for like
Oh yeah.
a call a week. And he's like, at times I think I need to charge more.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good, man. That's good. I love it. So today, I know you asked if I had an hour. I do have something at the top of the hour, so would love to dive in and start unleashing the greatness. And wherever we go, man, I'm good. Just having a great conversation, and having fun. I feel like that's the type of guy that you are as well. Just exploring, playing, discovering together, just being curious. It's going to be fun.
It is. Then you know what, Christopher?
Yeah.
I'll cut everything out and you just introduce yourself.
Okay. Cool.
Just go for it right now.
All right. What's up, everyone? Christopher Colin Burns here. I am the host of the Men Mastermind and our Mastering Man Within podcast. And the focus that I have dedicated my life to is really supporting people to reconnect with the source within themselves, the power, you could call it the God within, the universe, the life, the soul, whatever it is that you want to call it. But whatever that knowing, that universal knowing of who we are and what we're capable of. My job here, my responsibility, my mission here on this life is to connect people back to that. Specifically, I love helping men because I am a man, and I love supporting other men who came from similar backgrounds to me. And even though I've hosted my own podcast for years and interviewed over 800 leaders, role models, experts, people who are changing the world, I host retreats internationally. I'm living in Tulum, Mexico right now with my gorgeous wife. And there's a lot of really amazing things that are happening for me. And it wasn't always like this. And particularly, I hit some rock bottoms in my life. I started off really not being able to communicate effectively at all. I was super afraid of speaking in public, didn't want to get any kind of spotlight or attention on me, just wanted the world to leave me alone so I could play my video games, hide, and not have any responsibility or anything to do. And I felt this sense of anxiety and depression and feeling lost in the world. And so I got that energy, stuck, pent up energy out, which I know a lot of men are dealing with, is like, we have these coping mechanisms and strategies and addictions and whatever it might be, whether it's, shopping or food or sex or drugs or pornography or whatever it is. Like, there's these coping strategies that we have to relieve that pressure. And for me, it was partying a lot in my late teens and early 20s. And I went to a lot of raves, and I hit my rock bottom when I got arrested at a rave. And next thing I knew, I was in the San Bernardino, Southern California County Prison. And I was there for just under 2 days, but it was a wake-up call for me to say, hey, I'm throwing away my life. I got an engineering degree and my whole future in front of me. What am I doing here? Where did I make the wrong turn? How did I wind up here? And thankfully I wasn't, 30, 40, 50 years old when that happened. I was still pretty young. And from that, I made a really drastic change saying, God, get me out of this situation. And I promise I'll dedicate the rest of my life to being a better version of myself. And thankfully it did, whatever, the universe got me through that.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, man. And the charges were dropped. Case was dismissed. Nothing ever went on my record, but it could have been a lot worse, man. And So I'm super grateful for that. But I really set out even more intensely. I had done a little bit of personal development at that point, but went hardcore into it and on the journey of self-mastery and serving and supporting other people. And so after about a decade, that brings us to where we are today, man.
That's awesome. Your early story of the video games and scatterbrain and couldn't focus, that was literally me. If you just talked to me even 2 years ago, it'd be a completely different person. Like, dude, I was obsessed with video games. That's all I could do. I literally could not talk to humans for my life, especially women. If you had a gun and said, "Oh yeah, hell, talk to this person or you die," it's like, I'd just shoot me now, kind of thing.
Dude, I was the exact same, man. It's so funny. I love the similarities because it really, for me, and I have a feeling it is for you too, because you're a good looking guy, you're sharp, you're intelligent. I have a feeling that you have a way with words and a way with like connecting with people and being curious and that's important. You care about people and how they feel and how they think. And so was I. But I had this story that was in my mind of like, oh, I'm a loser, I'm nobody. Why should anyone listen to me? And oftentimes the clients that I work with, one of my clients' name is Kevin Castillo. He was posting on social media like all the time. He still does today. But when I met him, he was constantly posting on social media, but didn't have any like vehicles or offers or anything like that. And I helped him launch his podcast. Thankfully, he was introduced by a friend of ours, Brian K. Wright, who has Success Profiles Radio, also another great podcast. Brian's interviewed like Jack Campbell and all kinds of cool people like that.
Cool people.
Yeah. So he's a cool guy, and he introduced Kevin to me, and so Kevin helped him launch his podcast. And after that, he launched his book, and now he's hosting mastermind dinners and bringing, world changers, impactors, influencers together into a room, into dinners to network and connect with each other and be able to make a bigger impact. When I met him, he was afraid of like really going for it, right? Really putting himself out there, really risking with a bigger venture or a bigger goal or whatever it might be. He was comfortable just posting, and it's easy to post. It's easy to put out content on social media that's safe, like memes and short little posts and written posts. It takes work. It takes a level of courage for sure, but we all know that there's greater levels of transparency and visibility and showing up to serve people. And even though he had those concerns and those fears and not knowing where to get started, what made him unique, how does he do it, what does he talk about on his podcast, supported him in getting that clarity and executing on that, man. So I think it's really important. You were talking about the power of mentorship before, and that the wisdom that we can receive when we're around other people and them being able to guide us, man. So I'm curious, as far as for you, how has mentorship and coaching and sharing information, especially on this podcast, man, you educate and inspire and impact a lot of people. How's that made a difference for you over the last couple of years? It sounds like.
Couple years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, because you mentioned like 2 years ago, right? That's really when things started for you, as far as you getting out there, you getting your voice out there, you getting in front of people.
So like 2 years ago, it was a big event for me. I was pretty much, long story short, I was on medications most of my life, like the heavy antipsychotic, anti-emotion, blah, blah, blah. And it was just one of those, the 2 years ago mark is when my new job I currently have, I had to go talk to like a psychiatrist, and then for the guy that gives you the pills and all that, without going to a full doctor. And he's like, professional Indian man, wouldn't see a lick out of line. He holds his paper, puts it down, stares at me, and says, Josh, how long have you been on this shit? And I just immediately am like, okay, this man won't say a thing out of line. And if he's saying that, I'm on bad stuff. So I went cold turkey that day. Because he was like, oh, we'll lean you off. Like, because I was, after he told me what I was on, he's like, you were taking enough for an insane asylum person.
Damn.
And that's where he's like, the way he's put it, one's like emotional, one was for anti-seizure side effect depressions, and one was just legal speed. So he's like, you're doing like this weird hiccup thing. And I'm like, there's quit cold turkey, that right there.
Damn, but isn't that wild though, man? It's wild that like we have been programmed to believe what people tell us, what the media tells us, what education, our parents, they all have our best interests at heart, right? Even other doctors, whatever it might be, they have our best interests at heart, but like how unconscious our society has become. And that's why I'm so grateful for shows like this and really spreading awareness and wisdom and real life conversations, real people opening up and sharing their journeys so that we can let people know that they're not alone. And if there are people who are, like I said, struggling with any of these addictions or any kind of coping strategies that aren't healthy and aren't empowering, then they can have some hope. They can have some reassurance that, hey, things can be different. Like I have a chance. I don't have to keep suffering with this. I don't have to keep suffering in this type of life.
Yeah. And that was like the biggest one. My original mentor, I do martial arts. That's like this. It's my oldest shirt I have. It's just comfy. But my original martial arts instructor is like, Josh, he's like, it's now like 3 years, but he's like 2 years ago, he's like, I couldn't have a conversation with you. He's like, you were talking about some weird stuff about elephants pooping like unicorns, and then somehow you're like flinching and staring at the wall like Hell's Gates there, and I'm like, it probably was. I don't remember it. I'm like, I was eating some heavy shit back then.
I bet, man.
And that's where he's like, Josh, like you're actually remembering things. Like he's now having me November 14th. He's going to try to get me to go for my 2nd degree black belt. Nice. And he's like, he's like, dude, you're remembering things. You come once a week, yet you learn everything like you were here 2 months. Wow. And I still told him, like, because my brain actually works the way it's supposed to.
Dang, man. That's awesome.
And that's the big thing now. He keeps joking. He's all right. So what's your business? What you gonna start?
Yeah.
He's like, you wasted 8 years of your life. How are we gonna make that up?
Man. Yeah. And it's so important too, to have a reason why we want to overcome something, because, you know, I found that a lot of people, it's easy to stay in mild discomfort. You may have heard this analogy or story before of the dog that's whimpering on the porch. Mm-hmm. And so a guy is sitting there on his rocking chair, rocking back and forth, and the dog's whimpering right next to him. And so a guy walks up to the guy on the rocking chair and asks, "Hey, you know, what's wrong with your dog? Why is he whimpering?" And the guy's like, "Oh, he's in pain. He's sitting on a nail." And the guy's like, "He's on a nail. Why doesn't he get up?" And the guy on the rocking chair is like, "Well, he's in pain, but he's not in pain enough to get up, right? So he's just going to stay there and keep whimpering because he's too lazy to get up, right?" And so the pleasure of getting off that nail is not higher than the inconvenience of what it would take to do that, right? So just staying on that nail, it's like, yeah, it's painful, but it would be even more quote unquote painful or uncomfortable to get up and go move somewhere else. And I think a lot of people are like that in this life, and they're in pain, they're suffering. But especially today, Josh, so many people have almost a badge of honor and a pride for their ability to suffer. Their ability to, right. And to, you know, I see value in that. I see some merit in the stoicism movement of being able to be tough and being able to handle like whatever comes our way in life. But I don't know, that's a blurry line of like, well, are you doing this because you want to get attention and you want to be, you know, the biggest victim in the room, or are you doing it because, you know, you're really toughening yourself and strengthening yourself? And, you know, or is it someone who's like afraid of seeing who they really are and like honestly looking at their insecurities and their faults and the things that keep them stuck or unhappy? Because I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people in my life who have expressed this desire to be the best version of themselves in different ways or another. But when it comes to like following through on that and doing the tough work, they hide, right? They hide, they play it safe. That's the
biggest one I've seen. It's crazy.
Yeah, man.
It's like one of those, a lot of my coworkers, they know I do the show, and they jokingly said, "Oh, you're talking about boring stuff, so we won't listen." But one of them actually does. He's a hardcore podcast addict. Like he's even told me, he's like, "I listen to Joe Rogan first, then I listen to you." I'm like, that's fair enough. I can't beat Joe Rogan kind of thing.
Not yet.
Yeah. You never know. In a couple of years, he'll be calling me up like, "Hey, Josh, come on over."
That's right, man.
But that's the biggest one. He told me, he's like, your show, he's like, "Yeah, you're the predominantly the business guy, but you're also getting smart and just it's a casual conversation." But he's like, you have more knowledge than you're leading on. I'm like, yeah, like no one here actually wants to listen to it. They take this huge badge of honor, like, "I'm suffering, but one day I'll retire and it'll be okay." And I'm sitting there going, "Yep, you're stressing yourself out for pennies when you could just literally take a side hustle and make probably as much as you do now, and you could work if you want to," kind of thing. That right there is super comforting. Yes, it's work. No, there's no free lunch kind of thing. Dang. And they were like, "Oh, but it's work." I'm like, well, then if you want a good life, you have to work hard for it. If you want a hard life, you don't have to work hard for it.
That's right, man. And Jim Rohn has a great quote: "You will face one of two pains no matter what, inevitably, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces. regret weighs tons. And it's so important that we recognize, hey, in this moment, how am I choosing to create my life and create my career, create my relationship? Am I choosing to do it by default, or am I choosing to really make the most out of it and really grow and make it even better? And one of my other clients, Cameron, he's in our Elite Man Mastermind, and his focus, he's had successful marketing business in the past, and in life there's these seasons, there's these phases of things, and while that used to fulfill him and be what his soul needed, what his higher self was wanting him to do, he now knows that just grinding away at the business is not what he's meant to do. He has 4 beautiful children, a beautiful wife. He has so much to live for, right? To just be slaving away in a business. And so he's really focused on bringing that play and that abundance, energy, and that aliveness, and that unleashing the little kid in life, so that we can have that wonder, we can have that curiosity, we can have that play. And I find that really makes a big difference. And I think there's a lot of people, older people, who are so pretending like they are this old person, right? When meanwhile it's a jaded old person and a repressed child self that they have stuff down and they don't access anymore. And I find that for me, it's been a big breakthrough to give my younger self, 6-year-old Chris, the 13-year-old Chris, whatever, these different versions of myself, the ability to voice what they want and what they're feeling, what they're struggling with. And even as a 30-year-old man today, what's important to me, what do I desire? And to give each of those aspects of myself the opportunity to be heard. And I find that creates more wholeness and integration.
Yeah, it was one of the guests I was talking to, and he actually brought it up, and it was hysterical. He's like, do you know of Gordon Peterson? And I was like, yeah. He's one of those, he's a bit controversial in his own rights, but he is spitting good truths out, kind of thing. Yeah. And he's like, but his child mentality, he's like, that was my breakthrough. I guess this is before Gordon was actually recording him. He went to an actual event and he was there. And it was do you repress your inner child, or were you taught to ignore it? And that's where he sat there and he's like, it was such a simple question. And he's like, yeah, it was the most powerful one I needed to hear.
Dang.
Because he's like, that was it. He's like, that was the breakthrough for me. I realized I'll do the job I am currently. He's like, that's fine. And he's like, it pays for my hobbies that he's like, you can't normally make a career out of. Right. So he's like, right, I can tolerate the 9-to-5 grind with this gig. He owns his own firm or whatever. And he's like, but this firm is going to pay for my hobbies. And I'm like, oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's where he's like, you have to learn that balance. Are you willing to do the boring, mundane 5 days a week for 2 days of fun kind of thing? And I'm like, I didn't think of it that way.
Yeah. And again, another Jim Rohn quote, work part-time on your fortune until your fortune becomes like your full-time income. Right. So when you're working in a career and a job that's paying the bills, we get to work in the part-time, in the off hours, on the thing that's going to take us to where we want to go. Right. We don't, just because we work in a job, a 9-to-5, 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever it is a week, doesn't mean we have to stay there for the rest of our life. And I think that's another challenging thing for a lot of people, is they feel entitled when they do put in that 40 or 60 hours a week. They want to go home and rest. They want to go home and relax. They want to go home and just kick their feet up and take it easy from a hard day's work. But it's the people who are willing to put in that overtime, who are willing to go the extra mile, who are the ones who put themselves ahead of the curve, and who are the ones who become that, top 3%, 1%, 0.1%, whatever it is.
Right.
It's because they're willing to put in that extra mile, and it starts now. Right. A lot of people are thinking someday I will change my habits someday. I will change my routine someday. I'll become someone different someday. And all there is now, Josh, the past's gone. Right. And we don't have that. Yeah, we can't change it. The future hasn't yet come. So why live there? Why be afraid of it? Why constantly be planning for it? I think it's another big thing today, especially with how fast technology is changing. Like why it's useful to make a 10-year, 20-year plan, but like, really, how much time are you going to invest into that? Create a dream board, create a vision board, the things that inspire you. Put these pictures up of the life that you want to have. And if that takes 10, 20 years, that's okay. But really focus on, hey, what am I getting done the next 90 days? What am I getting done the next, 3 years, 1 year, 90 days, 1 month, 1 week? Right? What points am I putting up on the board? How am I moving this rock up the mountain? How am I making this happen? I think that's a lot of people think that they have too long. So that sense of urgency is a really big part of success in a lot of entrepreneurs' lives and businesses.
Yeah, no, that's the biggest one. And it's phrased many different ways. How do you climb the mountain one step at a time, eat an elephant one bite at a time? Yep. And that's the biggest one I've come to realize. And in general, it's just, you have to start somewhere. That's like, for me, that was like your analogy of tomorrow. I worked hard. I'll work on it tomorrow. And tomorrow never actually happens. But because I was working a security gig, it was like 60 to 90 hours a week.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those, I even said, I'm like, yeah, I'm making a lot of money, but what am I going to do with it? Like, if I'm burnout and giving up, what's the point of making all this money, kind of thing? And that's what sparked it. I taught myself how to do embroidery. Then I realized that was a completely cutthroat industry with low margins. And I'm like, okay, so first business failed, didn't even start it yet.
Yeah.
But then that's when I realized I could teach myself any skill. So that's where through the years, I picked up different things, but I realized, oh, wait, why can't I teach myself how to podcast?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been doing. It's just interviewing great guys like you, just be like, oh, similar path. They've achieved this direction. I'm still here trying to figure it out, like hardlining it over, but eventually it's going to break.
Dude, 100%, man. And I think that perseverance, that tenacity is the thing that separates the winners from the losers, the people who are victims and stay down when they're knocked down, or the people who get back up, even if they've been knocked down 99 times, they get back 100, right? Mm-hmm. And they keep going. So really, really acknowledge you, man. And I know a lot of your guests, almost all of them have that mentality of willingness to keep getting back up and keep going after we've been knocked down or have setbacks or defeats, man. Because I know I've had many throughout my life, challenging business partnerships that ended up pretty ugly, separated pretty ugly, and we're not didn't feel fulfilled in how we completed our relationship. But that's just how it happened, and you just got to keep moving, right? You're not going to stay there and stay stuck in a rut. You got to get back up and go build, go serve, go Here's another thing for your audience, for the listener right now, is make your life about serving others, right? Like the more you focus on yourself, the more you focus on what can I get? What do I want? Me. Then the more things are difficult and the harder it is. And especially in business and the industry I'm in, with like coaching and things like that, coaching, speaking, masterminds, if you are someone who's constantly focused on what can I get, and the purity of serving people is taken out of that. And it's important to have boundaries. It's important to know, money is a good thing. Money makes our dreams come true. And in a lot of ways, money is fuel. Money is an amplifier of who we already are. And like, we get to know that it's truly that service. It's truly finding people who are aligned with your values, and go serve them, go invest time and energy with them, go be around them, go have more conversations with them. Because when we do that, when we're around people with aligned values of, growth, of loyalty, of integrity, of, treating people right, respect, courage, these things, when you're around those people, the deals will happen. The energetic and monetary exchanges will happen. But the biggest thing that's a key there is having that values alignment. At least that's as far as I've found.
I want to say that's about the same for me. I used to actually teach martial arts at one point. Just got to high school. I didn't have any bills to worry about.
Right.
And that was the biggest one, because my original mentor was my martial arts instructor. And he's been in the industry for 30 years. The average dojo, air quote, lasts like 5.
Wow.
So he like beat all the records kind of thing.
Dang.
And that's why I asked him, like, what's your trick? How do you keep consistently getting people? And he's like, Josh, my play is long. Like,
Mm.
I started with you like whatever time. We didn't actually sign it till like a year and a half later. He's like,
Wow.
my average student is like 2 years. He's like, so I always got someone in the hopper. And I'm like, but you always talk about getting in people now. And he's like, oh yeah, you can always convince someone to come in quicker. But he's like, my average, he's like, it's 6 months to get someone in, 6 months to vet them, 6 months to
Mm.
see if they're even going to stay after that. He's like, once they pass those 3 stages, he's like, nah, I don't even have to worry about them. I'll just keep my relationship with them here and there. And I'm like, oh, okay, but that's a marketing funnel kind of thing. He's like, no, because I know a lot about you. And he's like, how much do you know about me? I'm like, well, I'm not allowed to ask questions. He's like, exactly.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what it clicked for me. I'm like, oh, it's not about me. Because like
Mm.
how he got me at it was at a fair. And
Mm.
I was an angry, angsty kid, bigger boy back then too. And that's where he told me months when I was working with him, he's like, I saw in your eyes a rage that can never be filled. And I immediately said, I can fix him. I can help him.
Dang.
I can serve him. And I was like, that was it? He's like, yeah. I'm like, shit, I've been with you 15 years now.
Dang.
And
Wow.
that's where he told me, he's like, it's never about, he's like, yes, his money is important as a business person. You got to pay your bills. You got to pay
Right.
this. And he's like, but the key to true success is helping someone. When you die,
Yes.
he's like, I can die right now. He's like, heaven forbid, but if I do, I won't have any regrets. I'm like, the only regret
Mm.
is you left your wife high and dry by accident. And he's like, the insurance will cover her. But yeah,
Oh my god. Dude, it's powerful. Having those mentors to pour into us is so important, man. And that's my really another part of the vision that I have for the world is every person who desires to grow, to have access to mentorship and coaching and guidance, whatever level that they're at. Because I know people who charge $100,000 a year for their coaching, right? And it's like it's exceptional high level coaching that really gets results, and it's typically only for a very
very few
select
selects.
type. Yeah, it's for a very select type of business owner and person who's going to want to invest that amount of money and get the return on that, and they're growth oriented and all that stuff. And then I know there's people who charge, $50 a coaching session, and that's okay. That's we all get to find the person who's in alignment with us on the spectrum, as far as where we're at. And even some people are so challenged financially that they're like, well, all I can do is be accountable, right? I don't even have any money to invest, even though that's kind of a BS excuse, right?
I would say if
It's a
you're in
story.
America, there's plenty of money.
Right, exactly. So, I don't care if it's $20, I'm putting $20, sending someone $20 and saying, I'm going to go do it. Right. The biggest thing is to put our money where our mouth is, follow through, be accountable. And a lot of people are having challenges with that because we have become a nation, especially in the United States, of people who have, our word is cheap. Whereas in the
Yeah.
past, our word used to have weight. And if we said, I promise to do something, and we do a handshake deal or whatever it might be, then that's what it was. And that was official. That was legit. And now we have all this like law and contracts, which is beneficial in a lot of way, but that is there almost as a backup if something goes wrong. But more than often, it's like the primary thing that people turn to, because we have such a poor job of like negotiation, being honest, speaking things up front instead of waiting till the last minute or leaving out details, omitting details.
Yeah. And that's the biggest one. As I've talked to just people in general, like even my own boss, it's hysterical at times. They ask me different like questions, and I'm like, I jokingly tell them, I'm a janitor. Like you rent my body for 6 hours and you want me to do stuff that get paid $60K a year. I'm like, man, you are really milking the system. And that's where it's one of those, and I'm like, all right, you know what, to my 2 cents, here you go.
Yeah.
And literally I've had my assistant manager, not the actual head guy, come back like a couple weeks later after he presented to whatever. And he's like, Josh, like, they were trying to give me a bonus. And he's like, I had to go get him to give you a check. And that's where he handed me a gift card. And he's like, whatever you said, like it was the thing they needed. I'm like, damn it, I should have charged $10,000 for that. Kind of thing.
Dude, that's so good. And it's so powerful because when we recognize our gifts and our contributions that we're able to make to people around us, then we truly are able to start commanding the fees and the value of what we're worth, right? What we say our time and energy and efforts are worth, man. So yeah, it's powerful, dude. And I'm curious, what's your vision for the show and where you're going to be taking it and what you see as the impact that you want to be creating in the world with it, man?
Wow, I think you're the first to actually ask that question. So for me, the show in general, when I first started, it was super business. Like I just want to talk to business people because I figured it out without figuring it out. If I invite someone on a show, I can pick their brain freely for an hour kind of thing. Yep. And I won't get charged.
Yep.
And a lot of my guests have told me that. So I was like, okay, so I'm picking all these coaches' brains. And I come to realize, actually, one of my guests said it. He's like, Josh, you will always be the business guy. That's why I always say it this way. He's like, but business doesn't actually sell. He's like, a smart businessman will hear what you're saying, take what you're saying, and go find someone cheaper instead. And I'm like, okay. He's like, just build a relationship, have fun. People will know if you have a very professional business person. It's suit and tie time. Can't be the crazy conspiracy theory talking about aliens guy. And I'm like, damn it, I like that though.
I love it.
But
I love it. So that's how it got started. And then where do you see it going moving forward?
Now I look at it as a place where people are welcome to come, open conversation, no judgment, just have fun, just tell your story as it is kind of thing. And if we get into super technical stuff, like I did with Vinay, great. If not, we had a great and fun time.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's so beautiful. I was very much the same way on my show, becoming your greatest possible self, when I was hosting it. And it was asking all these different experts and leaders about like what was important to them and what lit them up. And didn't matter if it was, underwater basket weaving or, flying a fighter jet or building a, 7, 8, 9-figure business, whatever it was, right? Like it was all just what was important to them. And I think that's so valuable to just be in conversations where people are lit up, because when they are lit up, then you can start tuning in, especially for me as I was on my journey of really finding out and discovering, who am I? Why am I here? What am I meant to do? When you hear these different conversations about what people are lit up by and what they're excited about, you can feel that in yourself of, man, am I excited about people, or am I excited more about tech? Am I excited about public speaking, or am I excited more about like writing and blogging? Am I excited about cooking food or music and art class, whatever, right?
Right.
So you can start feeling into these. And I find podcasting is one of the greatest places to play around with that and explore and see what resonates with each individual.
It's so great. Like I've learned so many niche skills now from podcasting. I learn best through my ears and actually doing it. I don't feel like if you had me read something, I randomly get dyslexia. I'm not even dyslexic. The letters just start jumping everywhere. And so I've learned business, trading, something else. And it's just like super niche stuff that like I would have to pay my guests a fortune with my income, a fortune. And I got it all free. And it's just, well, okay, small prices of an ad. But it's one of those 30 seconds for $1,000 to $10,000 worth of knowledge. It's like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and that is the biggest thing I've kind of realized with podcasting. It's like a lot of the big hosts have figured this out. It's like podcasting is what it is. Each episode is its own special thing.
Yeah.
Like there's the overarching goal of it, but he's like, the show itself is just, it's the show. Don't worry about it. Have fun.
Yep. Yeah, that's key. And, another thing I wanted to offer the listener right now is, if we're in a line of work that might not be our favorite thing, right? Whether it's a 9-to-5 job or even in our businesses, growing our businesses, right? I know lot of times in my life, I wanted to be there faster. I wanted to be making more money faster. I wanted to be traveling the world and doing more international retreats. I wanted to have more people watching my podcast, whatever, all these things. The more that we can enjoy that present moment where we're at and not keep trying to be somewhere else, then the faster that somewhere else comes to us. The faster the thing that we desire, the point that we desire, the place and time and where we want to be in our life, the faster that will come to us when we become unattached and we truly become grateful and appreciative and unattached to the present moment, man. So just wanted to give that to the listener, because I know that was a big part of my journey of figuring out, hey, like I'm like really not happy in my life. Like I don't feel truly content. I don't truly feel satisfied. I'm not happy or proud or grateful when I look at the number in my bank account. I'm not happy or proud or grateful when I look at my lifestyle or where I live or my habits or the people that I invest my time and energy with. I don't like myself when I look in the mirror. I don't like the conversation that I'm having with myself or the thoughts that I think about myself. And it's like, good. Start there, man. Like
exactly.
The biggest part is being able to admit that and acknowledge that and say, you know what, I don't like being here. And how can I enjoy this? How can I find the gold? How can I find the wisdom? How can I find the value in being here? And when we can do that, when we can start to sift through the mud and the BS and the not stuff we don't like, the stuff that doesn't turn us on, that feels heavy and overwhelming and exhausting, the better we get at sifting through all of that, all of the chaos, all of the distraction, all the noise, finding the gold, finding the value, finding the reason why we are actually there in that circumstance to begin with, then the faster we get out of that circumstance.
So you touched on a few things in that whole that whole sentence, but overarching in general is finding your purpose. How does one, like, in general, find their purpose? Let's say it's a 5-year-old you're trying to explain it to. How would they find their purpose?
So the first part is, like I touched on it already, as far as acknowledging that exactly where you're at is where you're meant to be, right? So many people think that their purpose is an elevator pitch, is a one-liner, is, I'm here to reconnect people to the source within and be their greatest selves, whatever, right? Like that could be seen as my purpose. Okay. But it's so much bigger than a one-line statement, right? Because who we are as beings, who Josh is as a human being, you cannot encapsulate your life into a single sentence, right? So let's do some debunking and myth busting. Your purpose is not a one-liner. Your purpose is not one sentence that you declare over and over and introduce yourself as at parties, networking events and things like that. That's not what your purpose is. Right.
Like, hello, my name is Josh. I do this. Hello, my name is Josh.
So it's important that we recognize that. And it's important that we also recognize that your purpose doesn't stay the same for the rest of your life. Okay. Because think about it, Josh, 10 years ago, is that the same Josh that you are today? Do you want the same things? Do you have the same ambitions? Do you have the same desires as you do today, as you did 10 years ago?
Oh God, no.
No, not a chance. And in 10 years, you'll be a completely different Josh who will want even more different things, right? So at that point, your purpose and how you articulate it is going to be different. So I wanted to just share that. One thing I will offer the listener right now, in terms of your purpose, the biggest affirmation, declaration, truth, whatever it might be, that will support you in living from your purpose, in finding your purpose and getting clarity on your purpose, is I am living my purpose now. I am on purpose now. Because get this, Josh, when we come into this body, like going back to astrology and depending on people's spiritual views and things like that, like somehow a soul or a being inhabits a physical human body when the egg and the sperm, join together and then a baby pops out. And it's like, that ain't no chance. That's not a random encounter. I believe that this universe is being divinely orchestrated. Right. And so there's some higher will, there's some higher, plan, blueprint, whatever you want to call it, That being said, it's not random that I came into this body. It's not random that I'm still alive, right? After, multiple car crashes and like dirt bikes and crashing on dirt bikes, like, it's a miracle that I'm still alive based on everything that's happened. I think a lot of people could say that same thing. Like, we've survived a lot. And why did we survive? Because we are supposed to be here. There's a reason why we are here on this earth. And so whether I know how to articulate my purpose or not, I'm going to first start by saying I am on purpose. I may not have the words to that, the sentence to that, but I am on purpose, and I am continuing to create clarity around my purpose every day, right? So it's like, that's a belief to really first instill. And then in terms of really getting towards that one-liner of what is your purpose, I would look for the things that you don't stand for. I would look for the things that you don't want. I would look for the things that make you angry or bring rage or hate into you. Start with the things that you absolutely cannot stand. And then when you look at that, then you can flip it to the other side and look for, okay, well, what's the value there that's being trespassed? What is it when someone's, driving on the road and they're cutting people off and I get so angry? What is that value that's being trespassed? It's disrespect. It's someone not being present. It's someone not caring, right? Someone being a jerk, someone being a whatever, a-hole or whatever it is, right? So it's when we can acknowledge that, then we flip it to the other side and we say, so what do I value? What do I stand for? I stand for someone who's conscious. I stand for consciousness. I stand for caring. I stand for compassion. I stand for respect. I stand for treating people right. I stand for integrity, right? Whatever that is. But when we can look for the things that we don't stand for and don't want, the travesties, atrocities that we see going on in the world, whether it's political or, there's a lot of stuff going on in the world right now. Look at those things that are hot buttons, right? And identify those and find out what's the value that's being trespassed, and then flip that over to the other side. And then we can start identifying the things that we stand for. And in that will lie the crumbs, so to speak, or the beginning of the breadcrumb trail towards our purpose and towards identifying, hey, what am I meant to do in this life? And if I stand for respect, just to wrap up, if I stand for respect, if I stand for integrity, if I stand for care, compassion, treating other people right, then how do I design a life where I'm living that value every day? Right? Well, if it's caring about people, maybe it's working in an elderly folks home. Maybe it's coaching. Maybe it's whatever else, daycare, taking care of kids, right? If it's respect or integrity, maybe it's reforming prison inmates who have had challenges with integrity and following the law and things like that. So it's important to get clear on those values and what lights us up, what turns us off, and then be able to say, okay, what kind of a life can I create? What kind of careers would involve those types of values that I could see myself enjoying and desiring to grow in for, a decade or more to come?
Oh, 100%. Because like your question earlier was 10-year younger me. He just got out of high school. I just bought a brand new Xbox 360. My goal was to be the best PlayStation or Xbox player. Now I play video games with my buddy, but he even knows, like, I'm doing it to make him happy. I'm not actually good at this anymore. But the thing that I mentioned to him, I said, I know my show is a little too high level for you and it's whatever, but sure. He pretty much said, like, Josh, you've always stood for this. Cause I was telling him, one of my guests emailed me and we were chatting and he was telling me how he went on this. He's like, I'm sorry to say, a bigger show than you. I'm like, most shows compared to me are bigger. It's okay, kind of thing. But, he's like, yeah, but they were bullying me. They were harassing me and calling me false names. And I was like, I immediately, my brother, his name's Damien. He's like, oh, I'm 100% sure you figured out their email and just lit them up. I'm like, yes, because that's unjust. That's unfair. Those are false accusations. I'm like, that should never be tolerated. You invited them on your show and you harassed them. You put them into the stocks and you forced them to take it. I'm like, no. And that's where he's like, I know you. He's like, you're going to make sure they hear it. He's like, you've always done that. You've stood for the unjust, the little guy. And I'm like, I was like, oh, but I mean, that's always been me. He's like, no, that's very special, my friend. Not many people do that anymore. And I was like, huh. And that's where it was when I was chatting with him earlier. And he's like, yeah, he's like, I do listen to your show, but he's like, some of them, like kind of like Vinay, he's like, I don't get half the shit you're saying. But he's like, I can hear it. You're making sure they're safe. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
well, and that's where he knows me from high school. He's like, you were bullied. You were in hell literally your whole life. Like, so if you can make sure someone else is not suffering what you went through, he's like, that's what makes you happy.
Bro, I love it. I love that you said that too, like sharing about this pain that you experienced in the past. And that's another place to look for the unjustness, the things that we don't stand for. And the gems of who we are and what we stand for, our purpose, oftentimes can be found in the past, in the experiences of the past, in the pain and the trauma of the past. Because guess what? Like, our trauma will continue being carried with us for the rest of our life until we deal with it. Right. And guess what's the way to deal with it? You got to confront it. You got to embrace it. You got to acknowledge it. You got to tear it apart, tear yourself apart, peel away the layers of the onion and get to the deepest level of your rawness, your vulnerability, your darkness, the stuff that you try to keep covered up, and make sure that nobody sees. And when we can dive into that and explore it and even share it with people, right? Share that ugliness and recognize that, wow, you know, when I share this with people, like all my friends don't abandon me, right? Or the good people, right? The right people.
Right, the good ones.
Right. the real true friends who, again, are values aligned, and that values alignment is consciousness and growth and respect and loyalty and things like that. But yeah, man, it's in that past, when we can go into that past and identify the traumas that we have experienced and bring those into the present and say, how can I heal this? So yes, we can look at it for ourselves, but also, Josh, you know this better than I do, or as well as I do, that when we focus on our traumas and teaching the lessons from those traumas, right? We've interviewed so many people on our podcast and gotten perspective on this pain from the past. And now we're sharing that with other people. We're teaching people about that. Guess what we're doing for these podcast guests that we are interviewing? We're giving them an opportunity to heal their trauma by discovering it, by rediscovering it, by declaring it, by sharing it, by sharing it with you, by knowing that their pain is making a difference for other people. And with regards to purpose and how our purpose evolves in life, you know, when we get to a point where we've taught about a trauma so much that we've integrated it fully, then it's almost like it doesn't even really light us up to keep talking about it. Right. So it's like, if we've had a pain and let's say we experienced the emotional or physical abuse growing up or whatever it might be, maybe for 10, 20 years, someone might build their coaching business or podcast or career or brand or platform around that. But at a certain point, probably gets to where they're like, man, I feel like this is the same thing over and over again. It's time to level up. It's time to go to something newer. What's the other shadow or inner demon that I have been resisting, confronting, right? And then maybe the next one is being like a global influencer or whatever it might be, you know, being a leader who leads hundreds or thousands of people or in a company or whatever it might be, right? So I think that's reassuring to know that, hey, by sharing my pain, I can educate and inspire others while also healing myself, and to know that, well, I don't have to keep suffering with this for the rest of my life, because the more I learn about it and share about it and serve others, the more I'm fulfilling my purpose, my dharma, and the more karma I'm clearing, and the more I become free to be able to be whatever's the highest version of myself, whatever this next season is requiring of me to be.
That's beautiful. No, that's the biggest one I've come to realize as I've talked to people. It was super funny. I had actually a therapist on, and he's more of a coach for business people, therapy on the side kind of thing. And as we're chatting, and we both like said it at the same time, like we've walked pretty much the same path. The only difference is where we were born. And I told him, like, this is so weird, because I thought I was the only one walking this like terrifying path. And he's like, no, he's like, that's why I'm a therapist, because I don't want people to go through it. Yep. And I told him, like, I guess I'm just the weird introvert. I don't want to talk to people about it.
But you're talking about it, dude. That's see, and here's the thing. How many introverts are out there that don't want to talk to people about it? Right. Like, so many.
There's so many.
I used to be introverted too, man. Like it's something I was committed to breaking through. So another just reassurance for a listener who's tuning in right now, like no matter where you're at, no matter what cards you've been dealt in life, you are the creator of your reality. You get to take responsibility and say, man, I don't like where I'm at. I don't like my income. I don't like my relationship. I don't like how I treat myself. I don't like my body. I don't like my spiritual, practices, whatever they are, whatever it is. I want to change it. I have to change it. Right. So then get up and change it. Find the people, find the resources, find the communities where you feel supported. Like I know our mastermind, our Elite Men Mastermind is really powerful for business owners, whether they're making a couple $100,000 or even getting in that startup phase of growing their business. It's just a really powerful space for men, entrepreneurs, and business owners to get the support, to keep going, to stay plugged in, to keep making progress. And even though we bring on experts and talk about all these different topics and trainings and add value in different ways, I find that the biggest value is just knowing that there's someone next to you who cares about you. There's someone there who is holding you accountable and making sure that you're doing what you said you were going to do. Because how easy is it to just let ourselves off the hook and make excuses and rationalize why we shouldn't do something or don't have to do something or put it off till tomorrow or whatever it is. Man, community is such a powerful force of upliftment and empowerment and making sure that we're staying in the game instead of being on the sidelines.
That is the biggest one. As I've talked to the people with my show, is I realized whatever you do, even if it's a price, make sure someone's actually cares about you and is going to hold you accountable. You say, I'm going to write a book. They're like, okay, dates, and I'm going to make sure you have it done by then. If you don't, it's like, if you don't, I get whatever. Yeah. Kind of thing. And make sure it's like one of those, it hurts. Because that's where I did training for the longest time for weightlifting. Yeah. And my original coach, she switched to someone else. She would text me when I didn't show up. And she's like, Josh, where are you? Because we made a verbal deal. Yep. And she's like, you didn't show up. You owe me $20 now.
That's right.
And I was just like, shit. So, and that's what started. And that's when I realized, I'm like, no, mentoring in general, we humans are very social. And I'm starting to realize your time's running low. So, two questions.
Yes.
During these lockdown times, other than work, what have you been doing to keep yourself busy?
And it's funny because I mentioned earlier about creating your own reality, and I have definitely been doing that. And even though it's locked down, different places have different standards. Australia, right. Canada have some pretty crazy restrictions. In the United States hasn't been as bad. I used to live in California, which it's just pretty bad and was pretty bad. Now I used to live in Nevada before moving to Tulum. So now I'm in Mexico. And I would say I focus on just living life still, continuing to live life, continuing to live connected to people, caring about people. So I still go to the gym. I still travel the world. I still go outside, go on walks, go to restaurants with my wife. And I do a lot of things with my wife. We do weekly relationship reviews and money dates and all these things. So we're continuing to grow our relationship. But I think the big thing that I have maintained is continuing to get outside, continue to get nature, continuing to get that Mother Earth energy, because it's so important, especially with all the fear and anxiety and panic and chaos and everything going on in the world today. At least that's what the media would have us believe. Right. It's important that we stay connected with being human and making sure we have great energy in our body. So, yeah.
I love it. That's what I've come to. I'm like, I've actually just uninstalled all the news apps and all that. I'm like, screw this. Yep. I don't need your fear mongering. Nope. So the second one is where everyone can contact you. They're like, okay, we made it to the end, Chris. What do we do?
Yes. So you can go to menmastermind.com, check out the website. If you want to follow me or connect on Instagram or Facebook, we'd love to just hear about you, hear what's going on in your world. And what was the biggest takeaway that you got from this show? I know I heard another episode that Josh was talking about screenshotting the episode, putting that on social media, tagging us. So always love when people do that and share their takeaways from episodes and things like that. So facebook.com/TH3Burns. TH3 Burns. And then Instagram is at Christopher Colin Burns. at Christopher Colin Burns. And that's 2 L's, Colin,
Okay.
Collin Burns, Christopher Colin Burns. And feel free to connect with me and let us know what was your favorite part about the episode.
I'm looking forward to it. It's an absolute pleasure, Chris. I would love to have you on in the future.
Absolutely, Josh. Thanks for having me. And everyone who's tuning in right now, I just acknowledge you. I acknowledge you for being growth oriented, committed to hearing real conversations with great people, and for being connected with Josh. Because I know, Josh, you're a great human being, and the people around you are going to be great human beings too. So thank you for having me on, Josh. It's been an honor, and I'm stoked to do it again, man.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you, Chris.
Thanks.
Well, congratulations. You made it to the end. You're an awesome person. Not many make it here. So, being the awesome person that you are, can you do me one more awesome favor? Can you rate and review this on whatever podcast services you're using? If you do it on Apple and you leave an actual written review, I have a thing on my website. I will take your written review and post it for all to see. Congratulations, you're permanently sealed on my site. Otherwise, I am trying to do YouTube more and live streaming. I will try to put as many of the YouTube links in the description of the show as I can. So give your boy some extra help over on YouTube. Watch my videos. I just mute it and change the channel, change the window or something. But yeah, that's it. Thank you for being awesome, and see you next time.